Assalamu Kuwaiti, welcome to Daily Mlawi, and welcome to the deep dive today where we're exploring the question, did Jesus claim to be God? We're excited about this video. There's a lot to unpack, and we're happy to have you guys with us. So stay tuned, and we'll get right into it. All right, so did Jesus claim to be God? This is a huge difference between Islam and Christianity. This one topic is the single most important divergent point. What you believe about Jesus changes everything. To accurately assess what Jesus claims, what he said, what he did, and the ability to make a judgment call, one must have accurate and reliable sources to draw from. It would be insane to say that Habib Bourguiba often claimed to be reincarnated over 50 times and held the collective memories of all of them when he was born, right? No one has ever said that. It's in no historical record. However, this is not at all like Jesus' claims or what Christians believe. Christians hold to the most accurate, historically reliable, and externally verifiable accounts of Jesus' life, teaching, and miracles. Not only this, but the first century Christians, people who by claiming Christianity are believing Jesus was God and died in their place for sin and then rose again, all of the early apostles and most of these early Christians died for their belief that Jesus was God. We call this martyrdom. The Romans and Jewish religious leaders pressured them to recant their faith, and despite knowing it would lead to death, they thought it was worth it to hold to what they knew was true. So, I would highly encourage you to watch our video on why the Bible is trustworthy, because this will also give evidence that these 4 books, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, can be trusted and are accurate to the originals without doubt. However, that's a whole other topic on what the Bible says about Jesus and how we can know it's true. Also, let me just throw this out. Virtually no one in the West, in academia or scholarship, says that Jesus never claimed to be God, because it is so evident. Even atheists or agnostic scholars, there is only one who has any prominence who tries to make this claim, but he fails miserably. His name's Bart Ehrman, and even his atheist colleagues disagree. The only people I know who doubt Jesus' claim to be God are Muslims. So first, let's look at what Jesus called himself, because this often is misunderstood. Jesus did not claim to be the Son of God. This was a title given to him by his followers later. Even what it implies is often misunderstood. And that's another video for another time. But what did Jesus call himself? Jesus' favorite name to call himself was the Son of Man. Now this might sound like a knockdown argument that Jesus was trying to reassure everybody that he was just a man. However, that's only if you don't know the Jewish scriptures and the prophecies about the Messiah. Jesus was born in Palestine in the 1st century. He was culturally Jewish. They all knew that this was a specific title. It was a very specific title for the Messianic God King. This comes from multiple prophecies from the prophets about the Messiah, one of which is Daniel. In Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14, Daniel writes, "I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples and nations and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and the kingdom, one that shall not be destroyed." There are multiple parts of deity wrapped in the small prophecy of the Messiah, also known as the Son of Man. First, he comes with the clouds of heaven. In Judaism, this was clearly known to be an attribute of deity. Only God comes on the clouds of heaven. Second, he's presented before the Ancient of Days, another name for God, and look what he is given by God: an everlasting dominion, glory, an everlasting kingdom, and people from every nation and language to serve him. Now, even to the average Jew, this appears that God is sharing his glory, power, rule, and even worship with whoever the Son of Man is. Now, there are other references about sons of men and even a prophet who also refers to himself as the Son of Man. However, the context of those is clearly not implying the Son of Man. The ancient Jews knew this was a special title for the Messiah, who would come. Tied to this title, Jesus would often claim attributes of deity as well. Mark 2, 10 through 11, and this story is also found in Matthew and Luke. Jesus says, "But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the paralytic, I say to you, get up, pick up your mat, and go home." Here we see two amazing things. He basically says, hey, so that you understand I have the authority to forgive sins, I'm going to first do a miracle for this crippled guy. And then you know I have the proper authority and power to actually forgive sin. So by forgiving sin, he is also making a claim to deity. Only God forgives sin. This was clearly understood. He is also showing his miraculous power, essentially the evidence he should at least be considered to be a righteous man by healing the crippled man. You might say, well, what if he was just forgiving the man of an offense like we would? And I'm so glad you asked. This is why reading these stories in context is so important. The Bible is so clear when you read it in the context of the stories. Just a few verses earlier, verses 5 through 7, Jesus sees this man being lowered through the roof by his friends, hoping that Jesus would heal him. He says in verse 5, "Son, your sins are forgiven." And then in verse 7, the scribes and religious leaders say, "Why does this man speak like that? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" So literally in the story, we see the religious leaders saying, hey, he's making a claim to be God, or at least like God. This is punishable by death. The writers of the gospel are calling this out so that even people unacquainted with the Jewish culture see what Jesus is claiming and how it's being received. We see this over and over in the scriptures, where Jesus says something or does something that is a deity claim, and the religious leaders want to kill him. This is ultimately why he was killed. He kept claiming to be God in these ways, doing miracles only God could do, and the religious leaders were losing sway over the people and were being called out for their hypocrisy by Jesus. So they had him killed. Another great example of who Jesus claims to be is Yahweh. It can sometimes be referred to with its Latin nickname, Jehovah. When I talk about the name Yahweh, I'm blown away. My Tunisian friends and Muslim friends don't know this term. It's mysteriously nowhere in Islam. It's the single most important holy name of God to the Jews and then carried through to Christians. It is the name God gives Moses at the burning bush. It's so holy and precious that for Jews to write it, they would need to do a whole cleansing, purification ceremony before and after. So they literally came up with nicknames and terms for God so they didn't always have to go through all of these steps. So, if you didn't pick up on it, it is a very, very important name for the Jews and Christians, and literally all throughout all of the scriptures. Now guess what? Jesus not only freely uses this name, he calls himself Yahweh multiple times. He even pairs it with attributes of deity or nicknames of God, so it is very clear. Let's look at a few quickly. These are often referred to as Jesus' I am statements, because Yahweh from Hebrew literally means I am. Jesus spoke mostly in Hebrew and Aramaic. All of them are found chronologically in the Gospel of John, so I'll share them and then we can do a deep dive into one of them. John 6:35, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the bread of life. John 8:12, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the light of the world. John 8:58, Jesus says, before Abraham was, Yahweh, I am. John 10:9, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the door, implying the way to heaven. John 10:11 and 14, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the good shepherd. John 11:25, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the resurrection. John 14:6, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 15:1 through 5, Jesus says, Yahweh, I am the vine, implying he is the source of life. Now, before we zoom in, it's important to note that in these stories, he is claiming the name of Yahweh and title of God. These were titles of God from the Jews. He wasn't creating new titles associating himself with Yahweh. He often would be doing a miracle, had just done a miracle, or was making other claims of deity within these stories. After many of these incidents, the religious leaders would either want to try to kill him on the spot for blasphemy, which was claiming to be God, or at least sharing the attributes of God that are only God's, or they would plot to kill him. So let's zoom into one of my favorites, John 8. I encourage you to read the Gospel of John, or at least John 8 for yourself. The very first chapter clearly lays out that Jesus is the Creator God. I'll summarize John 8's story a bit. So Jesus makes one Yahweh claim, Yahweh, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. The Pharisees, the religious leaders, begin to say, you're lying. This can't be true. You must have a demon. They get into this little back and forth, and the religious leaders get more upset because the more he talks, the more he is claiming to be from God and somehow also God. They can't wrap their minds around it, and they start saying, we know we are right because we follow Abraham. Jesus is like, Abraham, this guy you say you know so well and follow, he rejoiced that he would see my day. And they respond saying, you're not even 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? This is where Jesus' claim finally connects. And it's a powerful statement because they were too dull to really hear what he was saying before. Jesus responds, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, Yahweh, I am. Again, Jesus makes this double claim of divinity. He is saying he pre-existed Abraham. Abraham lived literally over 2,000 years before Jesus. Second, Jesus goes way out of his way to literally reconstruct the sentence, even in Hebrew, so that it was very clear. He is saying, no, actually, I did live before Abraham, and I am Yahweh. Right after this, they picked up stones to kill him for blasphemy because they heard him clearly claiming to be God. The second thing we see as Jesus is claiming to be God is through his actions. Over and over, Jesus did miracles that only God can do. He heals people who were born blind. He raises people from the dead. Lazarus was dead for 4 days. He breaks laws of physics by walking on water and multiplying a meal to feed 5,000 and more. He controls or calms storms. He has complete authority over demons. He literally does tons of miracles that are very well documented by multiple authors and in front of massive crowds. Aside from the miracles, he also forgives sin, something only God can do. He is worshiped and accepts the worship, even praises them for finally figuring it out. Finally, let me make one last point. The Jewish scriptures, the prophets writing about the Messiah, said that the Messiah would be God. So when the Messiah came, it shouldn't be a surprise that he was God in flesh. The prophet Isaiah, 700 years before Jesus came, prophesied about this coming Messiah. Isaiah 9, 6-7 says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of the peace there will be no end, and on the throne of David and over his kingdom to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. There are many other prophecies where we see the Messiah as God, or at least having God-like attributes that only God has, that were written about the coming Messiah way before he came. There are literally so many instances where he is claiming to be God or doing things only God can do, that it would be impossible to honestly say he was not claiming to be God. If you're someone who thinks maybe the Bible was corrupted or changed a bit, or if you watch our video on why the Bible is trustworthy, you will know that cannot be the case. It has tons of ways we can know for certain it's accurate. So in conclusion, if someone says Jesus never claimed to be God, they must have never really read the scriptures. Reading 1 or 2 verses out of context is not reading the Bible. Or they're looking for something so specific to justify that he never claimed to be God, like that famous quotation, where in the Bible does Jesus say, I am God, worship me? Part of this I feel is very sad, There is so much richness in understanding the context of what Jesus is saying and why, but you need to know the Bible stories. You need to know what the prophets prophesied. You need to know what God has promised. If you don't know this, of course you will miss some things. When I was searching for God and the truth, I came to this point where I knew the Bible was accurate and reliable based on the research I had done. I also clearly saw all the incidents confirming Jesus claiming to be God or proving he was God. Then, like the famous author of Chronicles of Narnia and philosopher C.S. Lewis, who came to be a Christian in adulthood, I had to confront the concept that Jesus can only be one of three things: a liar, a lunatic, or the Lord. I am so confident that Jesus' divinity is all over the New Testament. I've got a challenge for you. Find 5 consecutive chapters anywhere in the New Testament. I would say just beside Revelation, because the book of Revelation is just forward looking at its prophecy about the future. Anywhere else in the New Testament, a book that's bigger than the Quran itself, hundreds of chapters, find 5 consecutive chapters where Jesus' divinity isn't explicit or he's not doing divine acts. If you could find 5 consecutive chapters anywhere in the New Testament besides Revelation, you can win this challenge. I'm confident you won't be able to find it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today in our deep dive video of Did Jesus Claim to be God? We hope it was informational, it was fun and engaging. Hopefully you learned something new. We're gonna keep pumping out some more of these deep dive videos in the topics that we covered in our summary videos, and we encourage you to come back and check those out. But in the meantime, we hope this was good and beneficial for you. God bless you guys. We'll see you in the next one.